And we're live.
Go back in history. That guy's done comedy for 15 to 20 years. No one just pops and has any longevity. Someone may pop for a year, but they fade out pretty quick. It's the guy like, Louis had at those last 3 specials he did were phenomenal, but he had 20 years behind him.
And 20 years of life experience. And I think, in my opinion, more specifically, 20 years of shitty life experience. And I gotta say, I hope you're not offended, I think that's what makes you so funny. You have had a rough life, like from the early days of childhood up until now. It seems like it's been a rough road to hoe, right?
Yeah, mom was mentally ill. Dad was a raging alcoholic, kind of abusive. I ran away when I was 12, but I didn't just run away. I didn't just grab a hobo stick and an action figure and walk down the street. I walked to the freeway at 12 years old, hitchhiked to the San Jose airport from Northern California, called my mom, got on a plane, and flew to LA. That's how I ran away. I didn't fuck around.
You actually ran. What was this pitch that you gave to whoever the fuck picked you up at 12? Like, what did you say?
It was weird. I'm going to talk about it the next special after Marigeddon. I'm talking about this because I had more shitty things happen with my kids this year with the divorce. So I got home. I'd spent all this time with my mom. And the weird thing when you're a kid and you got divorced parents, it's like this game show. Everybody's playing a game show. Let's see what's behind mom. Let's see what's behind dad. Which showcase do you want? That's kind of how it works. So my mom and dad were kind of fighting. My dad didn't give a shit. My mom was mentally ill. He didn't care. So she had taken me on vacation to Idaho. We spent some time with friends. We came back. I'd spent all this time with mom. We went camping, which to my mom meant sleep in the car at a rest stop. She had this 1970 Chevy Caprice, and we slept in a restaurant. And you're a kid, so you don't think it's weird. You're a kid, so you're not thinking, oh, this is bizarre. No.
Mm-hmm.
So we did it and saw these friends, drove back to LA. My mom brought me back 2 days late. And it was a Sunday. I was supposed to be back on Friday because I had school on Monday. So my 8th grade year started. And he came home to pick me up at my grandma's house because they had to do the hostage transfer. Parents that don't get along do a hostage transfer. I talked about that before. He comes in and he starts calling my mom a cunt, and he starts going off in front of my grandma. And I had this little this thing I'd gotten out of a gum machine. I threw it at him, and man, my dad turned around. My dad was a big dude, 6'5", and he grabbed me by both my feet in one hand and picked me up and just wailed on me. So the next day, my mom gave me $20 in case I ever needed a call or anything. So the next day was my first day of my 8th grade year. I walked to the bus stop. I got in the back of the line to get on the bus. I let everybody else walk on the bus, and then I just kind of turned and started walking down the street. And I walked about a mile to the freeway entrance in Newark, California. Hitchhiked. This gay dude actually in a Chevy Chevette picked me up, and he was he was really concerned. He was like, "Why are you 12 years old on the freeway filming?" And I made up this bullshit story like, the 12-year-old brain is so insightful and so great at lying. Like a monster. Yeah. So I said, oh, my dad has to work. He works really hard. And, he goes to work at 6. He just said, you got to go back to your mom's, go, hitchhike to the airport. No, I'll see you in a couple weeks. And the guy didn't buy that at all because he took me to the airport, got out of the car with me, walked me through the airport, double checked with the ticket people, and then walked me to the gate. And he bought me an Evel Knievel book. Evel Knievel is, if you guys know what Evel Knievel is, you guys know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He bought me this Evel Knievel book, and I'll never forget that dude, man. He just made sure I got on the plane. He called my mom, made me call my mom so he could get on the phone. And I think mom, I don't know if mom told him the truth or not. And then I went to LA, and then the court battle started. And this was when they would let you testify. At 12 years old, I testified against my father in court.
Jesus.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, right.
Jesus.
Yeah, they
having to look at his angry eyes the whole time, like darting
he was
over.
Just staring at me. Yes. And it was right around his birthday. So before the court date, mom would take me to the store, and I got him a gift. And so then I testified against
3 to 5,
him.
Dad. Here you go.
And then gave him the gift. Here, happy birthday, Dad. And I lived there for 2 years, and it was a nightmare. And the time I lived with my mom, we got evicted 3 times. A 12, 13-year-old kid should not know the sheriff by his first name. He would just show up, and I'd be like, "How's it going, Doug? Yeah, does furniture need to be on the lawn today or tomorrow?" Okay. That happened 3 times. So then I moved back to my dad's house.
Jesus Christ.
So if none of
evicted once. That's
but
horrible.
if none of that had happened, if it had been just happy days from the very beginning, no mental illness, no alcoholism, nuclear family staying together, do you think you'd be as funny?
No, not at all. I also
Right.
think here's the thing. I actually don't even think like someone will tell me, and people go, "You're so edgy," and I'm like, I don't think edgy. I'm not edgy at all. It's just what's funny to me. My dad got divorced 6 times, and he was a single father, and he put me in situations as a kid where like I was just around adults all the time, so I had this weird sense of humor because adults talk a lot of shit. I never had kid humor ever. I never had a childish sense of humor because my dad was always really kind of dark, and so I just picked up this weird sense of humor from him, which he didn't agree. Like when I became a comic, he was like, "How the hell do you think of this shit?" And I wanted to just go, "I lived with you for like 20 years of my life. It just went down the 6 girlfriends, and I mean the 6 wives and the 600 girlfriends, and like he would just like I was in casinos. My dad, you go, we're going on vacation. I said, okay, so we go to Tahoe. And my dad takes me in Harris, puts me in Harris casino. They had like a big room at the bottom that was full of video games for kids, and parents would just drop their kids off. And he gave me like $5 and left me there for 5 hours.
So what did you do for the last 4.5 hours?
I
Just
know,
stand
man.
around?
I did. I just, you try to hope to God someone walked away from their game, and then he came around. He just. I think it was a different time, man. Because at this
parents
point,
did the same thing.
Yeah.
Every time we went on vacation, they would have a roll of quarters, which is that $20 a stack, like still in the paper. So they would prep for this. We would go to the hotel and they'd be like, well, we're going to need rolls of quarters, and they'd usually have one for me and one for my brother, and they'd send us to the arcade and they would fuck. And that was like how our vacations all started. And at first, I didn't know what the score was. But eventually, it's like, yes, they're going to fuck. And I remember on one vacation in particular, the hotel, classy place, had a vibrating bed. So they're like, you guys are going to have to split one roll of quarters. And we did. Yeah. And they kept the other roll for the vibrating bed.
Do you get weird?
The whole roll.
Do you get weird sexual urges around change machines now?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So he did that. My dad would get roll of quarters and then make me do laundry at the laundromat. That's what my dad used his roll of quarters for.
Yeah.
So I just lived in a kind of different world of not, I went to one Boy Scout thing. Like I wanted to join the Boy Scouts. So I went to one meeting and I took my dad, and we sit through the meeting with all these dads and all this weird, like just these weird, like Ned Flanders-y kind of people talking with their kids. And we get in the car to leave, and my dad closes the door, looks at me and goes, "Bunch of fags. You really want to hang out with these people?" And that was my one and only Boy Scout experience.
He just didn't want to drive you back, and you just wanted to make fires. But no, they're just a bunch of fags.
He did. He goes, he just called them a bunch of fags. You want a kerchief? Is that what you want, son?
Yeah. You want a bunch of badges on a shawl? Parade around? Yeah, no.
Monday night we'd go without partners, where basically divorced parents would go to date other divorced parents, and all they would do is give their kids a roll of quarters. Look back to your thing. And so we'd play volleyball every Monday night, and then we'd go to pizza parlor, and he would just hit on women, and he'd always take someone home every Monday night. So I just lived in a different world, man. And so the darkness never, and my mom was mentally ill, so it was shit. When I lived with my mom, it was just crazy all the time. My mom used to drink a beer in the house. She would put a brown bag over a tall boy in the house. I was like, "Is this homeless practice, Mom? What are we doing here?" Like, I know that's a beer. Like, why do you have a bag over?
Was she like so used to being accosted in some way or another because of your dad or someone by the law that it just became habit of like, may as well not have an open container in here because they're gonna bust in eventually?
Yeah, maybe she was crazy. My mom was manic depressive schizophrenic diagnosed, so she heard voices. There were people that weren't there that told her things.
What was
and that's what
as a kid? What was the craziest thing she ever told you that she heard? If she shared that with you,
it's funny. She would never. Mom never did it to me, although okay, I'll tell you one thing that happened. I'll tell you two things. Well, first of all, first thing happened. Mom would go through these things where she was fine she also had a 185 IQ, like she's off the charts. Like she could speak 4 languages. She was a concert pianist. She actually would work for this company called Hollister Steer for a while. It was a drug company. And she actually studied, they had this big book of drugs and what they did. She started taking calls after the second month there as a pharmacist at the company and giving pharmacists advice on drugs they could prescribe people. She was a secretary. She was not a pharmacist. That's what my mom.
I highly recommend this antipsychotic. I use it every day.
Works for me. So she would do that. So one time we were living in Burbank, and she would drink. She didn't like her meds because she said this. I said this in one of my shows. She said that it gave me. She goes, "You don't know my highs, and you'll never know my lows." And it's just chilling the way she said it. So she would drink and then pound alcohol. One night she beat the shit out of my sister, and I had to get involved and stop her. And then the next morning, and my sister was beat up, and I had to stop her. And then the next morning, my sister got up, and my mom was like, "What the hell happened to you?" And then looked at me, and she goes, "You beat your sister." I'm like, "No, you beat my sister." And she cracked me across the face in the kitchen. And I remember just thinking, at one point when mom was crazy, you just kind of backed it down a little bit. You just got we're like, "Okay, mom, whatever, I'm out." And so my sister had kind of had a rough life. My sister, I was lucky enough to have my dad. My sister was not that lucky. My sister was with my mom all the time, and it didn't end well.
You guys had the same dad?
No, we had two. No, my mom. I always, the joke I used to do is I have a half sister from mom's second marriage and a half sister from dad's second marriage, so I actually have one sister. Old jokes, very old joke.
Man. I wanted to jump back to one thing about your crazy family, because that's just a magnet that won't stop pulling. So you mentioned that your mom ended up murdering her new husband. Was that at a point where you were like, "All right, this is par for the course. We knew this was only a matter of time. She's so batshit crazy," or was this like the final thing that taught you how truly crazy she was to murder her husband?
No, when I lived with her for my dad had been talking so much shit about my mom for so long, because my dad got me. My dad got me when I was a little kid, and then when I ran away when I was 12 to 14, lived with her, I realized how fucking crazy she was. When Dad called me to say, "Hey, I got a phone call. Your mom shot and killed her husband," and I remember, and I wrote a joke for it. It's one of my shows. I go, "And like we all knew we all knew." I'm not kidding. We all knew that she was she'd been arrested once before for attacking a dude with a knife that she invited for dinner. And
so there was a
we all
precedent.
knew.
Yeah.
Oh, there's another precedent too. She dropped my sister off at my uncle's one year. She came up to visit us for my college graduation. My college. I went to college. Sorry. For my high school graduation, and then she dropped my sister off with my uncle, and then fucking disappeared. She disappeared for 2 weeks, and they found her. They found her in San Francisco about 2 weeks later in a doorway, high as shit and drunk as fuck, and she was covered in her own menstrual blood. And that's so like I was used to it just kept stepping up. Then she shot and killed a guy. Oh, on Thanksgiving too. Wow. And then my sister told me. It's weird you guys want to talk about all this because this is all going in the next show. I just haven't written jokes for it yet. My
Still
sister,
funny.
Yeah.
Thank you. She shot and killed him on Thanksgiving because he was an abusive guy. The joke I did in my old special was, the guy was half O.J. Simpson and half O.J. Simpson. He was just a bad guy, and she had put the turkey on the table for like 15 minutes late for Thanksgiving. He wasn't happy with that, so what he did was he threw it across the room. So she countered with a boiling pot of potatoes. She just threw this boiling pot of potatoes at him. And the joke I did in my old special was, and if you look it up in the domestic violence desk reference, she was valid. And then he beat the shit out of her. So she went upstairs, got his gun, came down and shot him 3 times. And then my sister told me, it's a true story, man. My sister told me she shot him and he was dying. And my sister goes, "I better call the ambulance." And my mom stopped her and said, No, wait. And they waited till he died, and then they called the ambulance. She didn't want him to make it.
So
yeah, that's not even the worst. Do you know that's not even the worst story? My
How
sister
could that
told
not
me
be the worst? She murdered someone.
My sister is so my sister she tragically took her own life. She was raised by mom. I don't think the kid had a chance. So she told me this story after all this happened. We'd seen each other for a while. She was living in Florida, and we would see each other on holidays and stuff. And when she was living with that dude, I think Idaho, whatever, and she was living with that. My mom was married to this guy, and my mom had got my sister a dog, and the guy didn't. He get that fucking dog out of here, he said. And so all of a sudden, my sister came home and my mom said, oh, we had to give the dog away, and she was crying and blah, blah, blah. 2 days later, the dog shows up on the porch, and its mom it was like sliced up. Mom thought she had killed it and buried it, and it had survived. Yeah, so when you guys think that I had a fucked up life, my sister had a way more fucked up life. My sister,
she
like,
took
at least
the dog, stabbed it, and sliced it up with a knife, and thought it was dead,
buried
and then it unburied itself and stumbled to the door.
Yeah, it's like Pet Cemetery Part 4. And so my sister was raised in that, and so my sister really had never had a chance. So when people say, Titus, you had a tragic life, I think, you know what? I have weird stories and weird shit happened, but I had my dad, and it's weird. It's weird to say my dad was, he still had this weird connection to integrity and doing the right thing, and being honest, not to women. Don't ever be honest to women, but to everybody else, be honest.
Sounded
tying into Kyle's theory, right? That your fucked up childhood made you so funny.
It's
was your
all
sister
me. I know.
Even
I got
funnier early on. When she was around, was she the funny one?
See, I was blessed enough to have my dad, so I found my dad was always funny. Like, the darkest shit got, like, it was times when my dad, we didn't have any furniture. Every time he got divorced, I cleaned us out, and he was always cracking jokes. So I was trained to be funny in weird situations. My sister, on the other hand, wasn't, because my mom wasn't funny. So my sister became this poet, and she got published too. Send me some of her poems, and dude, you ever read something from somebody and you glance, and it's so good that you glance into their soul for a minute, and it's really a dark, bad place. There was some of them were beautiful. Some of them were like, oh my God, like you'd be tearing up because of what she wrote. But her pain came out in her poetry,
I'd rather be funny.
Yeah, right. Me too.
Not a lot of job openings for poets nowadays.
Not a lot. Those clubs suck too, man. No drinking.
It's so
you
pretentious.
You can only get chamomile tea. Oh, it's horrible.
I'm glad you mentioned the drinking. So I was that was kind of my next question. Like after just listening to all of that, I feel like I need a drink. So have you do you drink? And if you do drink, do you have any fears of alcoholism because of your father's history?
Have you dabbled in alcoholism at all?
Yes. I fell into a bonfire when I was 17 because I was drinking. I started, I told the story in another show, but I tell another story. At 15, I started drinking. By the time I was 17, I was so good at it. I was so good at it, I fell into a bonfire. AA sent me a certificate that just said, wow. And then it said, we can't help you. So yeah, I drank for a while, and then I fell into the bonfire, and I stopped from 19 years old to 41 years old. I met my new girl, and we went out to dinner, and I ordered water, and she's like, why come you're not having a drink? And I go, because I fell into a bonfire when I was 17. She said, you're not 17 anymore. You're a grown-ass man. And I was like, wow, okay, you're an alcoholic. And so, but she's right. I can drink. I mean, I can. Fine. I'm not crazy. I don't have. I tell you what, I have a tendency if I wanted to, but I'm aware of it. Both my parents had that. Whatever that addiction gene is, they had it in spades. Yeah. If you go to 23andMe, it's there. If you send my DNA to 23andMe, they're like, holy shit, dude, how many people have you killed? They just send that back.
Jesus.
Man, that's.
Was alcohol the one that you were always wary of most, or was there like just all across the board addiction, like gambling, where you were like, I'm gonna be wary of that and be wary of cigarettes and weed and shit, like, or was it alcohol because of your dad?
Gambling bores me. I don't. I don't have any. I don't have it. Whatever it is, and I honestly, God, I think I have all the ingredients for it. But I'm addicted to stand-up in a way. Like I'm on my 8th special now, and I've already got my 9th forming in my head. I've written movies. I've written television shows. I think that's been it. Like if I had to say what has kept me from being a guy that's in rehab, it's comedy and writing and focusing on that stuff. Trying to use the pain to fuel whatever. Trying to use the pain to clear it with writing and clear it with comedy, because that's what it really has done. It's really cleared. Because as we talk about my life, I realize, wow, I'm fucked up. Like, you guys have really messed up my day, just so you know.
Dude, yeah, I really liked having Titus on. I'm not even joking, and I know Kyle's not either. I can tell. Like, it makes me feel thankful for my life.
Thankful that my I've had little my little arguments with my mother or whatever. pale in comparison. I love my mom. She texted me today. I love you, Kyle. How's it going? Blah blah blah. Oh my fucking God. Oh my God. You think he ever got a note from his mom that said she loved him? She got a note saying, Zorgon is under the bed. Fear the night, child. Fear the night.
The night child.
What the hell? I really do enjoy Titus' stuff. I wasn't blowing smoke up his ass when I mentioned loving his sitcom back in the day. I was so sad when it got canceled. I had a couple of supporting actors that have been in tons of movies that I like. I can't think of their names off the top of my head, but it was well cast, well acted, and it was funny. It came out in 2000. It was kind of edgy for that time period, and it mimicked his own life, where he had like an alcoholic dad in the picture and was dealing with family drama and stuff like that. And Chiz and I watched one of his specials last night, and I think I've seen all of his specials. He's got like 6, so maybe I've seen 3 or 4. But I've heard a ton of his stuff on Comedy Central Radio. Really funny guy. And the stories he told, how like dark they are, he mixes that into his comedy. All of his bits are about that stuff, or a lot of them are.
The story of why his show got canceled is awesome. Have you heard it?
Not in a long time. Remind me.
The quick and dirty version is this. There was another show on, it might have been Will and Grace, at the same time, and they were like cheating on each other. So they said, hey, I'd like to have that incorporated into your show too. And the network executive that pitched it, he didn't like the idea. So he belittled her and explained to her like she was a 3-year-old in diapers, just why she was as stupid as she actually is. And by the end of the season, that was it. They were getting good ratings. Everything was going well. They stopped promoting it. Bam. Yeah. He's like, do you even watch the show? And really talked down to the executive. And at the time, the show was so successful, he thought that he was bulletproof and he had a position to do that. And life lesson, everybody, managers typically have something on you and you won't win.
But I feel like if time was advanced 15 years for him, like if instead of 2000, that show debuting, it debuted in 2015, 2016, and that same shit went down, it's Netflix, Hulu, someone like that, snatch him up the next day and they'd be like, fucking season 2's with us, bro. Let's go. Like, because it was a great show. It was very funny. I miss it. And after watching that, I became a Titus fan. And I'd always gravitate when I'd see him on Comedy Central or something like that. So yeah, really appreciated having him on. Enjoyed that.
Yep. Yeah, I liked him too.